that brings me back to something that Eliphaz, one of Job's friends, was doing. When he basically said, he was basically kind of in a sense arguing with Job, trying to play that role where he was self-righteous in the fact that it's like, he starts off in verse 2, if one ventures a word with you, will you be impatient? And that's basically saying like he's already coming after him in a sense, like if I say something to you and you don't like it, are you gonna listen or are you gonna try to attack me for it? Because he already knows what he's about to say is about to cause some issue. And so then he says in verse 5 through 7, but now it has come to you and you are impatient. And then it's but now it has come to you and you are impatient. It touches you and you are dismayed. Is not your fear of God your confidence, and the integrity of your ways your hope? Remember who that was innocent ever perished, or were the upright cut off?
So and that's the friend?
That's the friend. So if your friend is basically chastising you as if he were God, like he's acting like he knows God. And then what happens at the end of the story? God's like, no. And so he then goes into 17. Can mortal man be in the right before God? Can a man be pure before his maker? Even in his servants, he puts no trust. And that's where you know that he's not following God. He's following a false idol. Because you know who's the number one false idol? Satan. Because Satan's going to make it look like what you're about to do is righteous in the eyes before God. But in reality, it actually leads you to sin because he knows how to attack your heart because of what you're showing him. And so when you look at something like this, where even in his servants he puts no trust, that's false. Because guess what he gave Job? Riches. He trusted Job with the riches. He trusted Job with more of his creations, a family, a wife, servants, oxen, all these cattle, all this stuff. And then you're going to say he puts no trust in the Lord. The Lord loves you. That's why he trusts you with these things, more of his stuff, more of his creation, more of the things that he's made. He's trusting it with you to see how you can handle it in this life. And if you can't handle it in this life, then what makes you think you're going to handle the next, where you have it for eternity? And that's something I really wrestled with, because like when you look at stuff like this and you see people who try to speak to you like this, I sometimes feel like this. And I'm like, man, I sound just like this guy. Where I'm telling somebody how to live his life when, one, I'm telling him how to live a life that's not even his. I can't tell you how to live your life if it's not your life.
It's not even your life. You can
because then I'm insinuating that I have some controller aspect over that life. I can't do that because I'm not even living a life that's mine.
Come on.
And so, I think he continues on, and then he says, and then he makes the most cocky claim ever. Behold, this we have searched out. It is true. Hear and know it for your good. And so in NLT, it translates to something even more like I have to bring out my phone for this one because
come on with it.
It sounds even more clear in this.
And more in depth. Yeah.
So where is it? Job. It was chapter 5, the very last verses. He said in verse 27, we have studied life and found all this to be true. Listen to my counsel and apply it to yourself. Keyword, listen to my counsel. My counsel. And this is straight from one of his friends.
And apply it to yourself.
And apply it to yourself. And then he says, we have studied life and found all this to be true. That's pride right there in the first sentence. That's straight pride. And so that's something that leads me to be scared of like stuff like Matthew 7, 21, 23, where you're just like, well, if I'm trying to do ministry and I'm trying to tell somebody how to live instead of guide them to how they're supposed to live in the eyes of the Lord, if I'm telling you, you got to tithe more than 10%, why? I don't know. You just got to do it. Because we have studied life and found that tithing 15% reaps more blessings.
Yeah, I want to add on, but I want to go back to what you said earlier. I apologize.
Yeah. Which one?
About his friends.
Yes.
His friends cracking him. What comes to mind for me is that they're right. They're right, but they're not completely right. Right? It's the
they're right, but they're not just.
It's the know about God versus know God, right?
Yeah.
Because that sounds to me like the Pharisees.
Oh.
Because the Pharisees, they knew about God. They knew more than anybody else in the entire civilization of the Israelites. They were the chosen, like they're upheld by the people.
Oh yeah.
Because of how much they knew. Yeah. But they crucified Jesus.
Yeah.
Right? Peter was a fisherman, but he knew God.
Yeah.
The Pharisees knew about God, but they didn't know him. So that sounds to me like the Pharisees. Like, I'm telling you everything that's right, Like, because everything they're saying is right.
You're a rule follower, but you don't follow the rules yourself.
Like, does God punish his people who do justly by him?
Yeah. Or no, punishes people who punishes people that do just by God?
Yeah.
No.
No, right? So that's what he's saying. He's saying like God doesn't punish people who are living righteously.
Exactly.
Right. But so it sounds like everything he's saying
exactly.
is right.
And then a big thing about that too is when you go back to it, right? And I think in the very beginning of Job, there was a man in the land of Uz whose name was Job, and that man was blameless and upright,
Yes.
one who feared God and turned him away from evil. And then if you go straight to further down, where does it say? Verse 8, and the Lord said to Satan, have you considered my servant Job, that there is none like him on the earth, a blameless and upright man.
Right.
And then Eliphaz is basically trying to tell him who he thinks Job is himself, and then trying to correct him, like exactly what you're saying, where it's like, no, basically what this shows you right here, the Lord tells me who I am,
Right.
not some other person
Right.
who should be knowing who they are through the Lord. Like, you can't tell me who I am. The Lord tells me who I am.
And when
That's the biggest thought for me to wrestle with right now.
When Brother Peter said that, which one of you said that? No, you said, does God punish the righteous?
Mm-hmm.
No, but he tested them, and it feels like punishment.
Yeah,
He
that's
will
so
test
real.
you, because you just read.
Oh, yeah.
He went to Satan and said, "What do you think about my servant Job?"
He was flexing on Satan.
He said,
because Satan knows your flesh, but God knows your heart.
Yeah, and so what turns out to be a blessing, because remember at the end, Job got double everything he
Right.
lost.
Yeah, everything.
You know, so is it safe to say that the more blessed you are by Christ, the more tests you will feel that feels like punishment?
Exactly.
Which make you think that Satan's messing with me when it's God testing you.
Exactly. I mean, to add a little joke to that.
Please.
To add a little joke to that, in a sense, when you said that he got double everything, the only thing he didn't get double of is a wife. So
wife,
for you gentlemen out there that got more than one girl, God, that's not of God.
But the thing is, that's a good. But the thing is, you would think, why didn't she's told this man, why don't you curse God and die? You got boils, all you scraping, you. But see, he's showing that even with those trying times, to look at her husband almost die, and he's suffering and he's feverish, and she said, just curse God and die. Why would those words come out of her mouth? To curse God and die.
That wasn't his wife
changing.
talking.
Thank you.
Because at the end of the story, does it say
Her visual, and see, sometimes we can go through things, bro, and it'll look like, oh my God, you know what? We'll say the most unimaginable things we would, knowing God, loving God. But that's why God said, I can forgive anyone.
Because wisdom is referred to as a her, and when Satan speaks, Satan's a him. So Satan's going to speak through her and make a sound on stuff.
Because what did Satan do at the beginning? He told her, why don't you taste it? It'll be like God. She tasted and gave it to her husband.
But yeah, another thing too, at the end of the book, nowhere did it say that Job got a new wife.
No.
Nowhere did it say he got a new wife.
Did not.
It just said he got more kids, more everything.
She was a descendant from Eve, the first
Exactly.
mother. Same spirit. He uses the spirit. So we have to understand all these things that are going on. I don't want to be like Job, man. I don't want to. I just don't think that I could. I mean, one servant was coming and say, hey, man, they killed your daughter. Before he could finish, another one said, they killed your son. He just shaved his head and said, Lord, what's going on?
Yeah.
And all the time, he never blamed God.
Yes.
He blamed himself.
In fact, he said, naked came I into this world.
And naked I'll leave. You sound like a foolish woman. And she was speaking foolishly because he was in a state of like, she's going to die. But to say those words, we're looking at the Almighty God and the Almighty God power and the power of Satan, the way they clash. And there's going to be tests and blessings, and there's going to be...
Exactly.
Go ahead.
It shows the level of a man he is too. Right? Because if someone comes to you and says, all your money is gone, all your kids are dead, everything you own has been destroyed, you're on your own.
And then your best friends come and say, what did you do against God, bro?
But look at his wife. His wife reacted the way a normal person
That's
does.
what I'm talking about. Yeah.
Exactly.
You're
She lost
suffering.
everything too.
You're suffering,
She's
yeah.
his wife. She lost
her
those
children,
all the property,
her
everything.
comfort.
Yeah, nowhere did it say that she didn't love her children. She
Right.
loved her children.
And she loved her
of
husband.
course,
She
she's
didn't want him
suffering
to
too.
suffer. Yeah.
That shows the level of man he was, because when everything happened,
The integrity.
she responded with anger, and he
Exactly.
responded with
Yes.
gratitude.
And God knew that.
And then that's exactly what Job was basically saying here. When Job was at like one of the peaks of his suffering after Eliphaz and after his wife were basically kind of like getting on him, he said in verse 25, NLT sounds better than ESV for this book, but in ESV he said, "How forceful are upright words, but what does reproof from you reprove?" And then in NLT, "Honest words can be painful, but what do your criticisms amount to?"
Right.
What do they amount to? Because you're gonna tell me I'm not living the way that you think I should live, and if I apply this, it's gonna make my life so much better. When my life was already great without you.
Right.
My life was already blessed without you because you didn't give me none of this.
What happened to Job that we don't, that doesn't stand out? Well, it does later on, but what caused God to check Job? It was the doubt of himself. Remember when he started being, I wish I would,
When he curses his
yeah,
birth.
yes, and that's when he said, wait a minute, now you're offending the Creator, because you're here because I sinned. So where were you when I put the stars in the sky? Where were you when I created? Where were you? So he had to check it. So that doubt, we see from one of the ones that stood upright with God.
Yeah.
But it's still doubt. Go ahead.
No, I was just.
You smile.
He's gonna say it's
What are you
he's gonna say
saying?
like it's not doubt, it's him questioning himself.
No,
No, you're
When
right.
you said
I'm
that,
just kidding.
I was like, that's me. How often do I say, man, I'm not good enough? How often do I say, man,
I've
not
heard you
worthy of
say
that?
it. I've heard you say it.
I-
And I never believed it, but that's how we are. That's our nature.
But that hit really hard because for me to say I'm not worthy of this of life,
Right.
and God put in all the effort to create me. How like
The blessings that you would hold back from people. Yeah.
Yeah.
How
How
dare
dare you say
us?
that?
How dare us to? But we get into that state,
Yeah.
and He still loves us, even though He
Yeah.
know we're gonna do it. He knew everything that was gonna unfold with Job. That's why He told Satan, "Go ahead, just don't take his life." And when
Yeah.
Job starts saying, "I wish I would," I just told him not to take it, and now you're gonna doubt it.
Yeah.
Close book. Drop the mic.
That's
because
the biggest issue I go through too because
all of us.
because I'll get tested and then I'll blame God. I'll get tested and then I question things. What's
it's
up?
all of
Sorry.
us.
No, it's. I feel like that's God's nature though.
Mm-hmm.
He'll let you go until you can't anymore,
He will.
and then he'll be like, I got you.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I got you.
And I feel so stupid when he got me, and I'm like, man,
Dude.
I didn't even know I could be gotten that way. You know, I got to repent now because
Exactly.
it's like, God, I didn't know. He said, I know.
Oh my
I
gosh.
know.
Like, I didn't know I could be begotten that way, the way Jesus was begotten by the Father.
And that's what I'm hungry for because I'm over here and I think I'll be honest too, the last like 2 or 3 weeks I felt like I'm starting to come to the end of myself where I can't answer any more of these questions.
Right.
None of them make me feel the kind of fire anymore. None of them make me feel the certain way that I need to feel and feel. That's the key word, everybody. It's not what you feel, it's what you know.
Right.
So don't worry about all that stuff. But for the most
all
part,
feel.
that's something that's wrong with me. Where I'm over here trying to figure out what is it that I feel. Why don't I feel God's love and able to feel like I want to give it to others?
And just to be fair, we
'Cause I'm
all
coming to the end of
feel
myself.
that to a certain degree. I
You
don't
do.
care. It doesn't have to be all, if you feel it for 1 second, you felt it, man. You felt it, and you can't
Exactly.
deny that feeling, man. You can't lie and say you didn't feel that.
I felt it I felt it yesterday on my way to work, right? I was driving. It was beautiful outside. Like it was the sun was out, beautiful cloud arrangements. I'm someone who likes taking pictures of the sky. I'm corny. I'm like that, right?
No, nature, man.
I mean, like you can probably ask my girlfriend. She'll say the same thing. Like we send each other pictures of the sky because we're just corny and nerdy like that. So it's the same thing. And when you look at it this way, I'm over here looking at the sky, thinking about how a couple years ago I never would have been put in this position, right? Of being able to actually want to read the Bible, actually want to do these things. I never would have thought that I could myself elaborate on these topics because I used to not care for them.
Right.
And now I'm over here trying to, it feels like when I read these things, I'm trying to convince myself, right? Because I know that something big is going to happen for me personally. I just don't know when because God's timing is better than
Right.
all. And that's what I'm trying to really tell
but here's
myself.
the
And
thing.
what I was saying, my bad.
ahead.
What I was saying was on my way to work, I was driving. I was like, I wasn't gonna take the freeway, but I was right in front of it, and I just saw a bunch of cars everywhere, and I was listening to some worship music. I was listening to There Is a Cloud by Elevation Worship. You probably heard of Elevation.
I have heard of it, but I haven't heard a lot of their music.
They got some good music. You should, bro. Chris Brown and not Chris Brown, but Chris Brown from Elevation Worship, and then Brandon Lake. Those are my two favorite singers, and they're both male singers. They're great. I was listening to that, and one of the biggest things about it, it's a song about doubt. He basically says, "We receive your rain," and he repeats that, "We receive your rain." And when I was like listening to it, I thought about how I have a full-time job. I thought about how I'm driving a car that I can take anywhere I want right now. I'm thinking about how I'm able to be fed every day. I'm thinking about how I have someone new in my life that I can really learn what it is to have a meaningful relationship.